Your niece was killed in a suicide bombing.
Yes, she was. Yes, she was. The cause for the death of my niece was the state of Israel.
If you were the prime minister, what would have been your response?
What would be your response if you were in Gaza?
But that wasn't the question. I asked you a question.
I know.
What happens when an Israeli general's son turns his back on everything his family built? Miko Peled is here, and this is one of the most intense debates ever aired on this podcast.
What will you do if you're a young Palestinian in Gaza living in a concentration camp where a glass of clean water is a luxury, where your child has no access to antibiotics?
I wouldn't attack a sovereign nation.
Really? You would not attack the country that has placed you in a concentration camp for all of these years. And you would sit around and you would say, I will not attack a sovereign nation. What are you talking about?
Don't cry about it when you get your ass kicked.
That's what you're calling this genocide, the murder of tens of thousands of children, the murder of tens of thousands of human beings, the destruction of hospitals and schools. You're calling that got your ass kicked?
A conversation that almost...
Are you out of your mind?
...didn't end well. A series of clips have been added in support of Rafi's arguments. A portion of them are in Arabic with English subtitles. Every single clip was made prior to the recording of this episode.
Welcome to another episode of the Soothing Semantics podcast. I am your host, Rafi Harel. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, leave your comments, like the video. You can support the channel via the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description or the pinned comment. Today we have a very interesting guest, an Israeli American who is the son and grandson of Israeli generals. And he's an author based now in the States. He's been in the States for quite a while, as far as I understand. And over the course of time, he has switched sides, so to speak, and is now one of the biggest Jewish supporters of the pro-Palestinian side. Welcome.
My grandfather wasn't a general. My grandfather was a signer on the Israeli Declaration of Independence. My father was a general.
Okay, well, yeah, your grandfather had a huge role to play in the establishment of the state. I mean,
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting how things turn. So what I want to thank you for joining me, Miko. I appreciate it.
Sure.
What I want to start with, what is kind of your story, right? So from what I understand, you served in a special forces unit yourself?
I served in the IDF, yes.
Okay. So give me the background of how you went from being part of an IDF unit. From what I understand in the beginning, in the initial stages, you were very supportive of. This was something that you looked forward to. You know, you had this dream of being part of the IDF as your father and grandfather were. So at what point was this shift?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. Before I answer, I want to ask you something. When you and I communicated earlier, we discussed some disparaging remarks that you made about some colleagues and friends of mine, namely Peter Beinart and Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, and you admitted that these were disparaging remarks. I think this would be a good time maybe to apologize publicly to them, but also to your viewers for using such, such language, which is really beyond inappropriate.
Okay, I'm not here to do that with you though. Like if that's a requirement. I mean, I definitely didn't say nice things about them. I'm sure there are things you've said that weren't nice about people in the past.
No, this is not about nice. You called Ilhan Omar a Somali pirate. That's beyond not nice.
I don't like the woman. I don't need to like her. I don't think.
No, you don't need to like her, but you need to be respectful. She's a U.S. Congresswoman, and she's an ally, and she's also a friend. And Peter Beinart is a well-respected person. You may disagree with him, which is fine, but the word you used to describe him, I think you call it moral retardation or something. It's insulting not just to him, but it's insulting, I think, to your audience that you use words, terms like that.
Miko, listen.
So you don't think this would be a good time for you to apologize for those?
No.
Really?
I acknowledge that what I said was wrong.
Okay.
But if we're going to sit here and but if that's
No,
going to
that's
be the
fine.
point of the
You
conversation.
acknowledge it was wrong. That's fine.
Okay.
That's good enough.
I think
That's
the
good
things
enough.
you say are wrong, Miko, but I'm not like this.
There's wrong
Shouldn't
and
be.
there's disparaging, but that's fine. We can, as
We'll
long as
get
you admit
into
you're
we'll
wrong.
get into okay, listen, we'll get into wrong and disparaging as long as you and I are respectful to each other. That's what I'm looking to accomplish. As far as the switch, this change that happened, how
Yeah,
did you go?
well, yeah, well, there's a book about it. It's called The General's Son, Journey of an Israeli in Palestine. And like you said, I come from a family that is deeply Zionist. And my family, my extended family, were all involved in the early Zionist movement, in the creation of the state, and then in the military and so forth, holding important positions. Um, and I was very proud of that initially, of course. So, like you said, I was eager to join the military. I mean, it's mandatory, but I was, I was patriotic enough to think that this was a great thing. And gradually, that that belief in the sincerity of Zionism, in the morality of the cause, and the morality of the military, the morality of the actions of the state of Israel began to crack and crack and crack until it completely crumbled and fell apart. So it's a gradual process. It didn't happen in one day. It happened gradually. There's a story my mother used to tell me as a child many, many times that I didn't understand until I was older, about how it was 1948, Palestinians were being forcibly kicked out of Jerusalem, of West Jerusalem, and these beautiful homes in these neighborhoods, Palestinian neighborhoods, were offered to Israelis, and she was offered a home. And she would say, her response was, she was 22 and she's already a mother. Her response was, how could I possibly take the home of another mother? How can I take the home of a family that are now refugees? And then she would go on to describe the looting and so forth. And of course, as a child, I couldn't really understand it. It was only much later that I understood that her story was actually, her story was negating the national narrative, which was that we're the good guys and they're the one, we don't do things like that, and they're the ones who do the bad things, not us. And then later on, when I was in the military, Israel invaded the first invasion of Lebanon in 1982. It was clear that it was the government was lying. There were horrific war crimes being committed against Palestinians, against Lebanese.
As a matter of historical fact, that for 78 years, I've seen them speak about Lebanon. And I would like to ask them a question right here from Beirut, if you allow me. How many Lebanese need to die so you can satisfy your ideological cravings? How many? We keep being pontificated at as if we are children who are unable to decide their own fate and their own national interest. Khalas, as we say in Lebanon, khalas. We want them to leave us alone. I've heard the argument that, Israel is attacking Lebanon and the Lebanese army need to stand by with Hezbollah to fight Israel, as if this is the national interest of the Lebanese. This is not only idiotic, peers, and shameful, it's counterproductive. And you know how I know that it's counterproductive? Because unlike them, I rely on facts, research, and history to prove my point. We know from history when Lebanon was attacked and when Lebanon was not attacked. If you allow me to show you this study I did, if we can take it on camera for just 2 seconds, I will tell you about these numbers. We know in Lebanon very well, 80% of us, that for 20 years, between the Armistice Agreement of 1949 and the beginning of PLO attacks against Israel in 1969, for these 20 years, we know that in this 20-year period, do you know how many times Israel violated Lebanese sovereignty in a 20-year period?
Tell me.
82 times, Pierce. 82 times in 20 years. Do you know how many Lebanese people died in 20 years as a result of skirmishes between Lebanon and Israel on the Israeli-Lebanese border? In 20 years, 15 people died. Do you know how many people were injured in 20 years? In a whole 20 years, 16 people were injured. That's in a whole 20 years. Why? Because there were no militias in South Lebanon, and the state owned the monopoly of arms. Now, if you compare that very quickly to the era that is often praised by some of these pundits, the era where the resistance was fighting against Israel and protecting Lebanon. In this period, between 2006 and 2026, a perfectly comparable period in terms of time frame, the number of Lebanese deaths, 6,152 people. The number of Lebanese injured, 23,056 people. The number of Israeli violations to Lebanese sovereignty that the resistance was protecting, 62,150 violations. That's a 410 times fold in dead people and 756 times fold in violations. So the math is clear, Piers. We knew when we were a jewel of the Mediterranean and the Middle East and why that is. We know these facts. We need them to stop lying because of their ideology at our expense. We also know, by the way, Piers, speaking of occupation and aggression, by certificate of UN Secretary General in April 2000, that Israel had left its occupation of every single inch of Lebanese territory. Today, because of the wars of liberation for Gaza and for Iran, about 25% of our territory is not occupied. We also know, as a matter of historical fact, that for 78 years of existence of Lebanon and Israel, despite 20 years of military occupation in the south, not one Jewish settlement was put in South Lebanon. So save us your buzzwords about expansionism and colonialism and settlements, etc. We know our history. And we don't need people blinded by ideology to tell us that we need to stand with an illegal sectarian fundamentalist militia and fight Israel. We don't need to do that. We need to stand with our army to establish Lebanese sovereignty, after which Israel would not be able or willing to attack Lebanon and thousands of people would not die.
Salah El-Maknouk, I really appreciate you coming on Uncensored. We've run out of time.
And on and on and on. And then finally, it wasn't until much later in life that I actually decided to embark on this, what I call the journey of an Israeli in Palestine. And that was actually here in the United States. I mean, I was born and raised in Jerusalem. I never met Palestinians because the segregation is so absolute. But I began to engage with Palestinians here in the US, and then gradually with Palestinian activists, first within 1948 Palestine, places like Nazareth, Fahim, the Naqab, and then gradually into the West Bank and so forth. And actually there was a gentleman here just the other day from Palestine, an old friend from the village of Bilain, and he spoke here and he's been speaking around the US, Ziad Burnat. And I remember the day I met him was the day that the wall completely crumbled. We were in Bilain, in this village in the West Bank, where in 2005, they started what they call the Popular Unarmed Resistance. And these were marches that would take place every week, and they were met by horrific violence by the army. And I met him, and we walked to the city that was built on their land. It's called Modi'in Elite, and it's called the settlement. And this was before they built the wall. So we walked across, and we saw all these Jewish immigrants that had come and are now living in these newly built apartments from the UK, from France, from all kinds of places.
From Passaic.
And then we realized that, and then, I looked at this, they call it a settlement. And I realized this is a massive city. I mean, billions of dollars were invested in this thing. And this is these people's land, and they're not allowed to live in these homes. It was confiscated, it was taken from them. And then I realized this whole idea of the two-state solution, of the legitimacy of Zionism, is one big lie. I mean, you've got Israelis living here, you've got Palestinians living here. Why do we need to segregate? How is it possible that we can possibly, segregate and create two states? I mean, it didn't make sense. Up to that point, I was kind of the two-state Zionist liberal type. And then I realized, I came back to the US, and I wrote a piece about that, saying, I called it "The Answers Have Changed." The answer to the question of Palestine and Israel, or the reply to it, the solution for it, is not separating and segregating, because it's no longer possible anyway, but a single democracy with equal rights and the application of international law and justice and so on. So that was really the December 2005. I'll never forget that moment. But that was kind of like I said, it was gradual, but eventually it was complete. And that's where we are today.
Fair enough. We actually agree on this one state component. I think the two-state solution isn't a solution in any form or fashion. I think the fact that Israelis have been pushing this idea, see, a Hasbara talking point is, oh, we've offered it 11 times, 13 times, however many times, and the Arabs kept saying no. Of course they're going to say no.
No, that's not true. Well, that's not true. The Palestinians have not said no. The Palestinians have said yes many times. And Israel has never officially offered a two-state solution. That's also not true. But it was something that the State of Israel and the Zionist Hasbara have been using to say, well, one day when the Palestinians behave and they're nice enough and we can trust them, then we will allow them perhaps to have a state of their own in areas that we determine, and they'll be led by people that we pick and that we like. And as they were saying this, of course, they completely took over the West Bank. So there's no West Bank and there's no East Jerusalem. They've all been fully integrated into the state of Israel, except for what the Zionists call pockets of an alien population, which is the ghettos in which Palestinians reside. So no, it's not true that the Palestinians said no. They agreed wholeheartedly, and there was nobody on the other side. There was nobody on the Israeli side that was willing to commit to the two-state solution ever. Not a single government ever agreed to that.
Because they wouldn't have agreed in the long term. It would have been another reason to launch further attacks.
That's your interpretation.
Reason why you have to fight them is because they are Jews and Christians. You should fight those empires around you, or those hukumat around you, which are Jew or Christian, until they give the jizya. That's fine. That we already know Islam allows. And then the howness of that is in the hadith. The three options that they're given: either you give the jizya, or you do this, or you do that. We're not apologetic about that point. That is truth. If your religion has to have an expansionist element, so then therefore there is no situation or conceivability of peace being made between Muslims and non-Muslims. Islam is a warrior religion in many ways, and it's unapologetically so. It's about expansion, it's about conquest and so on.
So we lie and we cheat and we claim things that are not part of Islam, and guess what? Not all of them are dumb. They can tell when we lie. They can tell when someone sits behind it that says, Islam is peace. Islam is about peace. Why are you afraid to tell the people the truth? Whoa. Don't you think this kafir is going to open the Quran, read Surah Al-Anfal, and he's going to come across these ayat, the military ayat, which you've been trying to hide? Then what are you going to do?
The word of those who disbelieve the lowest. We don't say that Islam is here to live, to coexist with lots of different religions and all of us can just hold hands and be friends. This religion was sent to dominate the world. It was sent to be superior, to extinguish the light of every other religion and to be superior to it. We're not shy to say it, and we don't find that to be something that we should be shy to say. That this religion has been sent to dominate, to wipe out, to take out every other religion, to eclipse it, to be superior to it, to have the people leave every religion and to accept Islam. And if that requires fighting to achieve it, then it requires fighting to achieve it. Because the greatest purpose for which jihad was legislated is to make the word of Allah the highest and the word of those who disbelieve the lowest. We don't say that.
Good brothers and sisters, terrorism, it is part and parcel of Islam. Terrorism is part of the deen of Islam, yes. Allah said in the ayah, وَأَعِدُّوا لَهُمْ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُم مِّن قُوَّةٍ وَمِنْ رِبَاطِ الْخَيْرِ تَرْهِبُونَ بِهِ عَدُوَّ اللَّهِ. To terrify the enemies of Allah, we should prepare ourselves. Al-i'dad al-jihad, prepare to go to jihad is fard wa ayn on the Muslims, on the males like us here. That's why you should teach your son how to ride, how to shoot. Because it's the sunnah of the Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it's fard on you as a father to teach him how to become a mujahid. It's not some new phenomenon to kill the enemies of Allah. And you may say to yourself, no, they're innocent. No kafir is innocent.
Right. I mean, it's
there's
just
no
clear as
evidence.
day.
There's no evidence. Palestinians have never had an army, so it's a ridiculous claim.
Not
that
having
if
an
they
army
did,
doesn't mean
they would invest in that. But perhaps that's
they would.
irrelevant because
Yeah,
it's not.
it's
It's irrelevant because it's not something that's even remotely possible anymore.
It should have never been. The concept of two states would never work because both sides have too many religious believers, essentially, who would never accept such a thing. You
That
have too
has
many
nothing to do with
Jews.
religion. The Zionist government, starting from the very beginning, even before the state, were completely secular. This has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with settler colonialism and the occupation of land. It has nothing to do. The early Zionists and even the mainstream leaders of the state of Israel today are by and large completely secular. They don't give a damn about
true.
religion.
Right, but the
And
Palestinians the
but
Palestinians
and the
do.
Palestinians are by and large not particularly. I mean, some people are religious, some people are not religious. In that, actually, Israelis and Palestinians have quite a lot in common. But it has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with one side occupying and colonizing, and in the process destroying the indigenous population of the land, and the other side trying to resist the best they can and maintain their presence in their country and on their land. It has nothing to do with religion.
There has never been a state called Palestine. There's no Palestinian people. Palestine was a geographical name of a piece of land. People who lived there were not called Palestinians. They were living in Palestine. Jews living in Palestine, Arabs living in Palestine. So it was just a name of a piece of land. The Arabs who migrated to the land to participate in the prosperity that the Jews brought to the land, suddenly they became the Palestinians. The state of Palestine, it's a lie, and was manufactured in 1963 because Muslims had to mask their Islamic cause with a secular name and their jihad with a secular label, resistance, fighting occupation, things like that. That's basically what Israel is, and every single country that is not Islamic, if Islam has the power, will be Israel. It will be a non-Islamic sovereignty on an Islamic land. Is the United States of America an Islamic land? Of course. Why? Because Allah has given the land to Muslims. This hoax of Al-Aqsa thing, it was invented by Abdul Malik bin Marwan, the Umayyad Caliph, who was at war with Abdullah ibn Zubayr. Abdullah ibn Zubayr, he was controlling Mecca, and Abdul Malik bin Marwan, he was controlling the Levant, Damascus. So he was afraid that people would go to pilgrimage in Mecca, and Abdullah ibn Zubayr is going to influence them. So he just built another mosque in Jerusalem, and he convinced Muslims that this site is very holy, just like Al-Kaaba. You don't have to go to do pilgrimage in Mecca, you can do it here. And for 3 years, Muslims from Egypt, the Levant, they did pilgrimage in Jerusalem. And of course, they had to invent all kinds of hadith sayings of Muhammad to make sure that the story stands. But it's not about the land, it's not about the mosque, it's about the Jews, because the Jews live there. And it is an affront to Allah. It is an eruption in their theology that the enemies of Allah, the Jews, they're successful, they have sovereignty on what is seen as an Islamic land. That is basically why Jerusalem is central to Islam.
I'm not saying there aren't religious people that are involved and claim religious, things, but by and large, this has absolutely nothing to do with religion. Jews and Muslims, this is a myth.
You think it's a myth that religion is the primary cause of the conflict?
Well, I wouldn't call it a conflict. I would, because it's not a conflict. It's one side trying to destroy the other. So calling it a conflict is a bit misleading, but it is absolutely not religious. Absolutely not religious.
Right. We can agree to disagree. Okay. So something. Zuhair Mohsen was a senior PLO leader in '77. He said the Palestinian people does not exist. There's no difference between Jordanians, Palestinians, Syrians, and Lebanese. We are all part of one Arab nation. It is only for political reasons that we carefully endorse our Palestinian identity. What do you think about that?
I don't think anything about it. It's neither here nor there.
I think it's pretty relevant. I think it tells a lot of the story.
No, I think it's entirely irrelevant to say that it's entirely irrelevant. It's true that, you know, Palestinians do see themselves as part of the Arab nation and that there's strong ties to Syria and Jordan, but to say that there's no
they're
Palestinian.
ethnically the same. They're ethnically the same people. All of the Levantine Arabs are just a hodgepodge and a mix. Because you want to say, for example,
I don't know what your point is. I don't think it's relevant one way or the other. It has nothing to do with Palestine or with Palestinians.
Miko,
The
I
fact
noticed
that there's
that
a
when you have
connection.
your debates, Miko, when you have your debates, you say it's not relevant, and I'm supposed to just agree with you. I disagree with that.
Okay.
I disagree with that premise.
But I have
The reason
nothing I have nothing to say about it.
Okay, that's fine. So let's have the dialogue at least. The reason I say this is to say that you always say that you're a white settler colonialist, or your father was, your grandfather was, maybe Ashkenazi Jews. I don't want to jump to conclusions. That's what it sounds like. When you spoke to Jacob Newfield, whatever his name is, and he mentioned the Ashkenazi DNA being a specific DNA, do you see yourself as a white ethnic person? Do you see yourself as a Jewish ethnic person? How do you see yourself?
I see myself as the son and grandson of colonizers, of people that have taken somebody else's land with absolutely no justification, that committed horrific crimes, kind of like whites in South Africa, you know, like white South African that stood with Nelson Mandela, that stood with the struggle against South Africa, against the apartheid South Africa. Of course, you know, there were many who stood side by side with Mandela and so forth. Many of them were Jewish. And so that's how I view myself. And I was fortunate enough that I was able to take that journey out of the sphere of the colonizers who believed that they exist in a place called Israel, and realize that I was actually born and raised in a place called Palestine in spaces that are colonized. And so having taken the journey into the areas where Palestinians still exist, then I was able to kind of see the full picture.
I understand. So, but are you an ethnic European? I'll explain why I'm asking you. I'm asking you because
يا محمد قسامي قسامي طيب وانت يا زكريا شو حابب تصير لما تكبر؟ مهندس؟ ليش بدك تصير مهندس؟ عشان افجر اليهود.
And we see the Palestinian Authority is then coming and
صديقي قيس
هسه لا
طيب انا سمعت هم بيجوا عليكم كل يوم
بس هسه لا
طيب اسمع يا صديقي اعمل ايدك هيك
مخيم
لما يجوا عندكم اضربهم بوكس خلوا يجوا بندوره
ان شاء الله عشان نحرر فلسطين
ان شاء الله صديقي طيب على العموم يا روان انا بقول له يمسك حجر ولما يجي اليهود عنده يمسكوه
شو بيسوي طب الشرطي؟
بحبس الحرامي واللي بيعمل مشاكل
وبطخ اليهود صح؟ انت بدك تصيري زيه؟ ان شاء الله لما تكبري لما طخ اليهود كلهم؟ كلهم؟
The Germans who killed the Ashkenazi Jews did so on the basis of us not being pure whites, right? They did it because they saw us as Semites, they saw us as Middle Eastern, and they killed us for a plethora of reasons, but one of the primary reasons was we were not a pure Aryan race. So if you're not indigenous to this land, if you're a white settler, but you're also, I mean, are you European? Are you, I'm asking.
Why does it, let me ask you, why does it matter?
Of course it matters, because
why does it matter how I see myself and how I don't see myself? I mean, my roots are,
you don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
My roots are, you know, Russian, whatever that is.
But I mean,
why does that even matter? Russian Jew. Why does it even? Why is it
Of course
relevant?
it matters. Of course it
Why?
matters, because if you understood where your identity comes from and how you ended up in Russia and Ukraine, the whole history of how our people came to Europe, it would all make sense as to why so many Jews disagree with you. The majority of Jews
No,
disagree with you.
I don't. First of all, I don't think not so many Jews disagree with me. Number one, only the Zionist Jews.
The
People,
sensible one.
only
Okay.
Zionist Jews disagree. But the point is, if you think that there's anything in my background that can possibly justify what Israel is doing in Palestine and doing to the Palestinian people, then I got to tell you it's quite outrageous. There's nothing to do. My background, anybody else, any other Israeli background, any other Jews around the world background, can justify what the horrendous reality under which Palestinians have had to live over the last 100 years. That's
Right. So that's
it's
a
a ridiculous
separate
claim.
argument.
It has no bearing on anything. What my identity.
It has everything to do. That's a separate argument. But the point is for you to say that you're a white colonialist negates the fact that whether you like it or not, you might have white skin, Miko, and so do many Palestinians. I served in the West. I served in Judea and Samaria myself. I saw a hell of a lot of Palestinians that were either black because they were brought in as slaves. They were gingies. They were blue-eyed,
What?
pale-skinned.
Palestinians who were brought as slaves?
No. Black Palestinians, of course. Bedouins?
They were not brought as slaves. They're
Of course they
indigenous.
were. How do you think they look the way they do in the Levant? Of course they were brought in as slaves. Tamir,
I don't know where you get your information, Rafi.
How did they?
You got black people in Palestine facing racism. You better go do your research. What about our African brothers and sisters in Palestine who are suffering racism at the hands of the Palestinian Arabs? Y'all ain't said nothing about that. Oh no. You come to the wrong place for that. What about all the black people sold into slavery by the Arab nations? Has Palestine spoke out against that? Has Palestine spoke out against all the Africans in Africa, East Africa, being sold into slavery by the Arabs? I ain't heard no Palestinian say nothing about the Arab slave trade against African people. Get out of my face with that. You come to the wrong place. You got black.
Number one, enslaved people helped build this country, and number two, perhaps up to 1 in 3 of those slaves were Muslims. Matt can't rebut that because it's true, according to historians, according to the African American History Museum, according to the US State Department. Muslim slaves are a historical fact.
Muslim slaves are a historical fact, but let's talk about the ones that Mahdi keeps ignoring. The Arab and Muslim slave trade lasted 3 times longer than the transatlantic one, in which Arabs and Muslims enslaved between 17 to 19 million people. 10 million of those were Africans. Now, the men were castrated, but the women, they were used as sex slaves, a practice that still exists in some parts of the Middle East today. Oh, did I forget to mention the Africans who are being enslaved as we speak right now in different Arab and Muslim countries? I wonder why Mahdi can't talk about that. Mahdi will gaslight Americans about the transatlantic slave trade. But when was the last time you heard him talk about the 10 million Africans who were enslaved by Muslims? The thing is, Mahdi, I'm not even an American, but I am black and I am Muslim. And I want you to remember that next time you want to try to monetize from our history and suffering for your political advantages, because I can see through your bullshit. So this brave Arab individual wants me and my family to leave Israel and go back to Africa. And I'm glad to go to wherever the hell you think I'm from the moment 22 Arab countries pay reparations for all the million Africans who were taken and enslaved in the Middle East for over 1,200 years. Now that will be $3 trillion, and I take both cash and credit.
Slave trade, also known as trans-Saharan or Eastern slave trade, lasted over 1,300 years, from the 7th century till the 20th or even early 21st century in some regions.
How did they end up? How did they end up in the middle? How did you think they ended up in the Levant?
What do you mean? How did they end up? They're indigenous to the Levant.
The Arabs,
as opposed to me, who is obviously the descendant of settler colonizers. But again, this trying to connect the history of Jews, or the so-called history of Jews, and the reality of what Jews in Europe had to go through to somehow justify the horrendous genocide, the ethnic cleansing, the apartheid regime
Miko,
in Palestine
is
quite ridiculous. And I'll tell you one other thing. You mentioned the Nazis and the Holocaust. People forget the vast majority of Holocaust survivors chose not to go to Palestine. Only a very small fraction, or very small percentage of Holocaust survivors actually went to Palestine, and many of them left because they couldn't stand it. Because
I fact checked that.
treatment.
I don't know where you found that because I fact checked that. First of all, the majority of Holocaust survivors today live in Israel.
Absolutely, that's absolutely not true. I mean, factually and absolutely not true.
So, okay,
The vast majority.
That's what I read.
No, the vast majority. After World War II, there were about 2 million Jews in camps, waiting for their whatever. And the vast majority either went back home where they came from or came to America. Less than 10% actually ended up in Palestine. And many of them, because of their age, because of circumstances, really didn't have a choice. So they left as soon as they could and went back either to America or back home to Europe. But that is an absolute, that's absolutely not true.
Okay, so they went back home to Europe, the place they were killed for not being European. Today, the majority of living Holocaust survivors reside in Israel. The approximate distribution, about 110 to 120,000. United States, around 30,000 to 35,000. Smaller populations live in countries such as France, Canada, Germany, United Kingdom, Australia, Russia. Most living Holocaust survivors are now in their late 80s, 90s. As a result, the reason Israel has the largest survivor population is that after World War II, many Jewish survivors immigrated there, especially after the founding of the modern state of Israel in 1948, while others rebuilt their lives in countries such as the US, Canada, Australia, and parts of Western Europe. So I don't know. I mean, if you want to show me the article of where you're saying this, how you are so certain, according to my Google search, I know maybe you could say you want to say it's nonsense, but it looks pretty legitimate to me.
Yeah, it's not. It's not true. But that's beside. I mean, neither here nor there. Look, we're going to disagree.
Well,
on
you
a lot,
made a claim.
but that
You made a claim, and
absolutely-
you might be wrong on that. I'm just saying.
I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong. I researched it. I research what I say very well. I don't use words, and I don't say things.
Okay, Miko, but you think you're a white man, and I hate to break it to you, Adolf Hitler disagreed, and that matters because
that matters to me. Why?
It matters tremendously because at the end of the day, we are not white settler colonialists.
And that matters why?
Because it matters. Of course it matters. It matters
Why?
because we have a claim to the land.
You have a claim to Palestine?
Of course.
You have a claim to Palestine.
Of course I do.
What
I'm a
is your
Jew.
claim to Palestine?
It's not Palestine.
Where did your family
it's Israel.
come from? Where did your family come from?
My family is Judean. We're Jews.
Where did they?
1947, the very existence of the state of Israel, or is it about 1967 and the possibilities of working out a two-state agreement? Which is it?
It's about year 1000 BCE.
Explain.
So I'll be very blunt and honest. The biggest misinformation that would be would need our attention in order to move things forward is describing the Jews as foreign colonialists in their ancestral homeland. So in my professional opinion, I would say, following the different point of views in the Arab world, the idea is not 1948 or 1967. The idea is the rejection of the Jewish people to be sovereign on their ancestral homeland. This is why I told you 1000 BCE, because King David was the second king of Israel that established the kingdom, and that who was the real founder, if I may say, because he was the one who proclaimed Jerusalem as the capital of the kingdom of Israel. It was Hebron before that. And this is the irony, David. You have many Muslims, my fellow Muslims, who believe, honor, revere prophets and kings of Israel named after them without making these kind of connections that the Jewish people belong to this region, belong to this land, are not foreign colonialists. The word Jew itself, by the way, was never used before 586 BCE to identify the group that was called the Israelites. But they were called the Jews because when they were exiled to Babylonia, the Babylonians asked them, where you guys are coming from? They said, we come from a land called Judah. We are the Jews. If the majority of the Israelites were taken away from the portion of the land that was called Binyamin, you would be now called Binyaminites. So the word itself, Jew, defies anyone who would say that the Jews are not indigenous to the land of Israel, because the word itself says, I am Judean, I am Judah, I am the child of this land, which is now called, by the way, the West Bank. This is why the Israelis are still calling it Yehuda v'Shimron. And why is it called Judah? Because a character that is revered, honored, and respected in Islam and Judaism, Joshua bin Nun, when he entered the land, he partitioned it into 12 sectors, and that sector was called Judah. So you see what I'm saying, David, that the biggest misinformation is describing the Jews as conquerors on their ancestral homeland, a homeland that your ancestors and many of other Jewish ancestors lived in. And we as Muslims honor, revere, and respect. We respect and honor Isaiah, Jeremiah, David, Solomon, Habakkuk, and Daniel. Many Muslims now are named Daniel in Saudi Arabia without making the connection that the name itself is Hebrew. It means God judges, and this prophet is from the line of Judah, who was living in exile. I don't want to give a history lesson, David, but I'm just saying this is very important in understanding the dynamics and in understanding facts related to why Israel is there, because Israel has always been there.
هذه المسؤولية ليش بدنا نحمل اللي حمل السلاح؟
محسن بدك تحكي تاريخيا؟
تاريخيا
ما إسرائيل موجودة قبلنا كلنا، اليهود أول ديانة بالعالم، ما كان في شيء اسمه إسلام ولا في شيء اسمه مسيحية لما كانت إسرائيل من 4000 سنة. قبل الرومان، قبل ما يجوا الرومان، أوكي، الإمبراطورية الرومانية كان المملكة إسرائيل، ونحن بالعهد القديم بندرس الملوك اليهود. نحن يسوع المسيح هو يهودي إسرائيلي.
يعني هذه الأرض حق لليهود.
حق لليهود، بس إنه ما تيجي تزور التاريخ تقول لي إنه أنت موجود قبله. لا حبيبي، بدك تكون تعرف تاريخ وتروح تشوف مملكة إسرائيل، الملك سليمان والملك داوود، كل الأنبياء اللي هن موجودين عندكم حتى بالقرآن.
أنا عم بقول لك من 50 سنة كان في دولة اسمها فلسطين.
يا أخي ما كان في شيء اسمه فلسطين.
ما السعودية ما بقى شيء ما أعطتكم إياه، حتى دولة أسست لكم دولة، الملك فهد يوم ريغان يطلب منه تمويل زوار الكونترا قال له وحدة بوحدة أبي دولة لفلسطين، قال له أبشر، ووقع الخطاب دولة لفلسطين، وعلم الملك فهد عرفات انه حصلنا دولة فلسطينية. هرب عرفات ما شافوه الا بعد 10 سنين من هالكلام هذا، هرب ما يبي دولة فلسطينية. كلكم ما تبون دولة فلسطينية لان اساسا ما لكم قضية ولا لكم دولة ولا لكم ارض، هذه ارض اسرائيل بالقرآن، وانتم شتات رومان ملفقين، مغول وتركمان وشركس وارمن وغجر، ما لكم حق بفلسطين. فلسطين هذه دولة إسرائيلية لبني إسرائيل، وبني إسرائيل لمعلوميتكم بني إسرائيل هذولا عيال إسحاق، وحنا يا العرب عيال إسماعيل، وإسحاق وإسماعيل أخوين أبوهم إبراهيم عليه السلام، يعني هذولا عيال عمنا. لكن أنتم منين جيتوا؟ أنتم وش دخلكم بالموضوع؟ أنتم يا الشتات يا الغجر يا المغول يا التركمان يا الشركس يا الرومان يا بقايا الشعوب، إيش دخلكم بالموضوع؟ إيش دخلكم بالسالفة؟ إيش دخلكم بيننا؟ هذا بني إسرائيل على أرضهم، ما لكم أرض أنتم ولا لكم قضية يا جماعة. أنتم أدوختونا واشغلتونا. والأقصى، الأقصى لمعلوميتك ما عندكم أقصى، ما في شيء اسمه أقصى، في شيء اسمه القدس. المسجد الأقصى اللي ورد ذكره هو بالجعرانة 29 كيلو على الطائف، وكان المسجدين، المسجد الأقصى والمسجد الأدنى. المسجد الأقصى حقكم بناه هشام عام 72 هجري، كيف يسرى محمد له وهو مبني عام 72 للهجرة؟ يعني بعد وفاة محمد ب60 سنة. تضحكون على مين أنتم؟ تضحكون على مين؟ الفلسطيني أنت ما أنت عربي ولا لك أرض ولا لك قضية. الأرض أرض إسرائيل والقضية قضية إسرائيل معكم. كان إسحاق شامير ورابين وشارون وجولدا مائير والثاني والله ما ادري ايش اسمه، هذول كانوا ابطال، تدري ولا لا؟ لكن نتنياهو جبان، لا نتنياهو ما حرككم، ما ادري وش يبي بالاسلحه مكدسها عنده. يا ادمي يا نتنياهو احرق هالعصابات هذه وهالشتات وهالملفقين، وريح نفسك وريح العالم منهم وريحنا احنا منهم. ليش مخليهم؟ ليش فتح لهم الحدود يهاجرون؟ ان راحوا للاردن سووا ويلون الاسود، وان راحوا للكويت انهبوه يوم صدام احتله، انهبوا يلبسون لبس الجيش العراقي وينهبوه. الخسه والنذاله والحقاره ما يتركونها، هذه تربيتهم وهذا دمهم وهذا عرقهم. ليش ما تريح العالم منهم يا نتنياهو اذا انت رجال وبطل؟ ها؟ الله يلعنكم ويلعن حتى نتنياهو اللي ما خلصنا منكم. لان نتنياهو تارك لكم الحبل على الغارب. والمفروض نتنياهو هو اللي يأدبكم وهو اللي يخلص العالم.
They come from.
They settled in Europe in the diaspora.
Okay, so you have no claim to Palestine. Did
That's
you have any
ridiculous.
family going back
No. Let
over
me
the
debunk
last
this
years?
silly,
Do you
it's a
have
silly
any
claim.
You just said right now that people from the Levant are lighter skinned. Then why is it a problem for Jews to be lighter skinned? As for the ones that were in Europe, it's not like they went there by choice. They were forced out. You agree a lot of Palestinians were forced out?
Yeah, they were.
Okay, so are they still Palestinian?
Yeah.
Okay, will they be still Palestinian in 100 years?
Yeah.
If you say they'll always be Palestinian, and if they came back, they would still be Palestinian, then how come you don't afford that same logic to the Jews who were forced out and then they came back?
Because Jews, it's a religion. Everyone can convert.
Are you Muslim?
Yeah.
So this is something that you should understand as a Muslim, and you're laughing at it, which is weird, because you're kind of laughing at your own God. He said he was going to spread the Jews to the four corners of the world.
We don't believe that's the same book God wrote it.
Why did Muhammad tell them, if he doesn't know the answer and if they don't know the answer, to ask the Jews and the Christians? Why would he say that if the book was corrupted?
Wait, I don't know about this.
I'm going to now debunk everything you just said, okay? Can you go to Surah Al-Araf, Ayah 168?
Do you have any, can you show anything, any proof whatsoever that you or any of your family members lived in Palestine? Because I don't. Do you?
Let me, okay.
Do you?
If no, they don't,
Okay,
because
that's
they were
it. So you
kicked
have no
out.
claim.
No, that's
so
not
you
the
have
point.
no claim.
That's
it
not the
stops
point, Miko.
right there. Palestinians
I'll make a
have
very
the keys
simple
to their
argument.
home. Palestinians have the keys to their homes and the deeds to their land going back 100 years. So they're denied to return. But you, who have absolutely no connection to Palestine whatsoever, other than the mythology, you decide that you have a claim, and then you went there and you served in an army of terrorism to continue and to support the oppression and the killing of Palestinians. So that's the reality. You may think it's justified. That's fine. That's a question of
very
values.
proud to have served in that army.
But you have, well, that's good for you.
Miko,
then.
if
So
a Palestinian if a Palestinian moves to Chicago and raises Palestinian children for 1,000 years, continues to marry into Palestinian American families for 1,000 years.
Palestinianness is not a religion. Judaism is a religion.
It's not the. It's also an ethnic group. It's an
No.
ethno-religion.
Judaism
Yes,
is a religion. You can't decide on your own what Judaism is. Judaism defines itself as a faith, and all the rabbis going back more than 1,000 years have always said the nation of Israel is a nation united by its laws, by its religion, not by land, not by language, not by culture.
The religion's directly. What do you think the religion is tied to? Miko,
the religion is tied to
Jerusalem.
The religion is tied to faith. Jerusalem is a place to go worship. It's not a place to go murder people and take their homes.
Oh my God. Okay,
this is the reality. Now you may not like it, and I know that Zionists don't like it, but the reality is Judaism always has been a religion. Jews have been a religious minority throughout the world for, as we know, a very, very long time. The Zionists came and said, no, all this religious stuff is nonsense. We are a nation like in the modern sense. We have a country which is Palestine. The Bible is our history. End of story. And it's an idea that they took from Christian evangelicals in Europe, who developed this in the 19th century.
They weren't religious people, but they were able to. They were able to accomplish the goal. I don't agree with their way of thinking, but they were able to accomplish the goal.
Goal of what?
The goal of actually having a sovereign state.
Yes, but Jews, a sovereign state for who? For Zionists.
Hold on. Let me go back. But let me go back to my point.
At the expense of who?
Miko.
At the expense of who? What did they do? No, this is important. What did they do in order to accomplish that goal?
What did the Arabs do when they conquered the Middle East? When the Arabs came from the Arabian Peninsula, when Muhammad had his armies.
What's that got to do with anything? What does that got to do with anything?
Because you're sitting here.
The Zionists came to Palestine, committing acts of murder, acts of terrorism,
so
ethnic
has
cleansing.
every conquering country, Miko.
What?
So has
So
the
what?
US.
So
you live
what?
in the United States. You
So
live in the
what?
United States.
So what?
What do you mean, so what?
Think it's okay?
I'm not
That's
saying it's
where we disagree.
okay. I'm not
I don't
saying
care
it's
what other
okay.
people did.
I'm not
What
saying
the
it's okay, but
Zionists did in Palestine is illegal, immoral, unjustifiable in any way, shape, or form. And if you decided on your own, with absolutely no ties to the country, to go and serve in that criminal army, that's on you. But a lot of people think that committing crimes is okay. So that's a question of values.
I'm not saying that
It's a
these
question
things
of
are good
values.
things. No.
But what
I'm not
they
saying.
did is horrendous. They planned the ethnic cleansing going back to the 20s and 30s.
Miko, your
They
strategy
committed
of
the ethnic
debate.
cleansing.
Miko, your strategy of debate is to talk over me. It's not.
I'm not debating you. I'm
you think
not
you're
here to
yeah,
debate you.
I
You
you're not
wanted to
here to
interview
debate me.
me.
You're
I'm
not here
telling
to
you what I
you're not,
think. I'm not here to debate. I don't debate with Zionists, but I'm
okay.
willing to tell you what
You
I
don't
think.
debate
I'm
with
willing
you
to
don't
do the
debate with
interview.
Zionists. Your moral high ground is so much Miko, you're a much better person than me. I know. I'm aware. I understand. The reality is I know you think that obviously. That's your play. The point here is saying no conquest did not have its horrible tragedies. When the Jews came, there were horrible tragedies. The Jewish, the Lehi, the Haganah, they committed atrocities. I'm not going to deny that. Any country, any group of people that conquered land, that fought for land, had to kill. That was, it's unfortunate. It sucks. It's the reality. You live in the United States.
And
Do
you
you know what
justify it.
horrible things? Do you
And
know
you're
what
saying you're
horrible things?
justifying it. You're
I'm not
justifying it.
justifying it. It's not
You are.
justification. It's reality. No, it's reality. Every group you
regard to Israel. Oh, Israel is a settler colonial state. Zionism is a product of European imperialism, Jews or colonizers. So let's walk through some real history, okay? First thing, how did the Romans get to the land of Israel? Oh, that's right, military conquest. Judea was an independent Jewish kingdom, and then Rome invaded, crushed all of the uprisings, destroyed the Second Temple, enslaved and exiled Jews all across the empire. Then Emperor Hadrian tried to erase the Jewish people entirely, renaming Judea to Syria Palestina to humiliate and erase the Jewish connection to that land. Next came the Byzantines, Rome's Eastern Christian successor, and they didn't come from the land either. They inherited it as part of Rome's collapsing empire, and they enforced Christianity through imperial rule, another colonizing power. Then the Islamic conquest, which swept through during the 7th century after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. Arabs aren't from Israel either. They come from the Arabian Peninsula. They conquered the Levant by force. That's how they got to Israel. Not by heritage, not by indigeneity, by empire, by force, by violence. Then come the Ottoman Turks, who ruled the land for 400 years. Did they inherit it peacefully? No. They took it by war, by force, by expansion. Another empire, another occupier. And finally, after World War I, the British Empire seized control. Did they give the Jews a state? No, they actually restricted Jewish immigration during the Holocaust. They actually empowered Arab regimes, and they backtracked on many promises that they made to both the Arabs and the Jews. They eventually pulled out, gave it up to the UN for a partition. It was accepted by Jewish leaders, rejected by Arab leaders who had no sovereignty and no control in that land. So tell me again, who's the colonizer? Because the only people who originated in this land, who were there before the Romans, before the Arabs, before the Ottomans, before the British, were the Jews, who throughout all of this actual imperialism and colonization were driven out, murdered, and scattered across every corner of the earth. But now let's just kind of flip the script, okay? Jordan, created by the British in 1921, never existed before. Syria and Lebanon were sliced up by the French. Iraq, a British invention. Even the term Palestinian as a national identity in the modern sense only emerged after 1948, specifically 1964. It isn't ancient, it is a post-colonial identity. One of the requirements for indigenous status is to have your own culture, ethnicity, religion, whatever it may be, prior to the colonial entity taking over. Arabs don't have that. The Jews do. Do we not understand that most modern Middle Eastern states are themselves the result of Arab, Ottoman, or European colonialism? The Arab conquests themselves swallowed entire civilizations like the Assyrians, the Phoenicians, the Copts, the Berbers, the Persians, the Kurds, the Maronites, and yet nobody accuses these Arab majority countries of being settler colonial projects. But Jews returning to their own land through literal legal pathways under a land that wasn't owned by the Arabs, that's when people start to get mad.
You love the Arab people, Palestinian people. Are you willing to acknowledge the horrible tragedies that the Arabs have done and still do today? Arguably much worse to their own people.
Which Arabs are you talking about?
All over the Middle East.
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
All over the Middle East.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, Iran has more Muslim blood on their hands than any country in the region that calls itself Muslim. Iran built its entire political identity, its entire claim to global sympathy, Muslim sympathy, on the narrative of resistance, on the image that they're standing up against Zionism, standing up against imperialism, and so forth, on the language of Islamic brotherhood and the language of Islamic solidarity, and so on and so forth, while running death squads against Muslims in Baghdad, in Syria, in Lebanon, and in Yemen. Death squads. Okay, these two things cannot coexist in an honest analysis. You cannot present yourself as the defender of Muslim life while your proxies are ethnically cleansing Muslim neighborhoods by the thousands. No, I'm sorry. You cannot claim Islamic solidarity while pouring money and pouring weapons into a regime that is barrel bombing its own Muslim population. You should at least try to bring that same energetic criticism against Tehran for their decades upon decades of crimes against the Muslims. Because your selective outrage is not analysis. It's tribalism. It's sectarianism. And that's what got us here in the first place.
I don't know
You
what
don't
you're
know what
talking
I'm talking
about.
about.
I don't know
Yemen,
what you're talking
Afghanistan, Iraq, things that Iranians do to their own people.
Wait a minute,
The
wait a
the
minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Afghanistan is not an Arab country. Iran is
no
not
no
an Arab
Muslim.
country.
Okay,
You say Arab, so let's
okay,
hold on.
semantics.
You
Muslim
said
countries.
no, that's not semantics. That's not semantics.
Muslim
It's
countries.
it's ignorance. It's not semantics. But
Okay.
the Arabs in Iraq, who destroyed Iraq? It was the Americans. It wasn't Arabs. What are you talking about?
Oh, no question. But they still
What are you talking
slaughter each other.
about?
They still
What, Yemen?
slaughter each other.
Who's destroying Yemen? American proxy using the Saudi Arabia. What the hell are you talking about?
But they're still their own people
What
killing each
horrendous
other.
acts did Arabs commit that you're talking about? Be specific.
Any of the civil wars, any of the Lebanese civil war, the Syrian civil war, the Yemeni civil war,
Well, civil
ISIS
wars
on
are a
its own
terrible
people,
thing, but
ISIS on the Yazidis, Syrians on the Druze, the African countries, Al-Shabaab on their own people.
okay,
The
these are
list goes
small.
on and on.
You're
You could say
mixing
the
things right,
West.
left, and
Listen,
center.
I
But
don't
anyway, what's your
negate
point?
Miko.
What's your
My
point?
points are my points. I'm not going to negate that the West absolutely sticks its finger and butts its business in places it shouldn't, and they do that for their own gain. America uses Israel as a proxy for its own personal benefit. When you mention taxes, American money, tax dollars going to Israel, that's because America wants to be the big daddy of the Middle East. How do they do that? They find a country they can get to do what they want, to do their bidding, and this way Russia and China doesn't step in to control the region. That's why America does those things. The West, of course, the West has fucked over. Excuse my friend. I don't know if it. I mean, this is my show anyway. Who cares? But the the West has, of course, subjugated and mistreated people in different regions. It doesn't negate the fact that these people still slaughter each other.
Which
You have
people slaughter
terrible.
each other? What are you
You
talking
have.
about?
What do you mean? What am I talking about?
Let's take Palestine as an example, since we're talking about Palestine.
Arab, do you not Arabs don't hurt each other? Look even
I
amongst
didn't say
Arab
Arabs don't hurt each
Israelis.
other. We're talking about, first of all, Arabs is a very, very broad term. And so which country are you talking about? Which region are you talking about?
Shia and Sunni violence throughout history. I just gave you a list. I literally just gave you
Yeah, you gave me
Yemeni
a list
civil war,
of stuff
Yemeni civil war, Lebanese civil
So
war.
what's your
I'm telling
point?
you.
So what's your point?
What I'm saying is you're singling out Jews for being Zionists, okay, for being
Zionists.
violent maniacs. No, that
Right.
in quotations. But
Right.
what
No quotations.
instead, and you're making it, you're whitewashing the Arabs and or Muslims as being these perfectly peaceful people that would have been totally total pacifists if not for the evil Zionists that came in, negating the fact that they can be incredibly violent amongst themselves.
Who's they?
Practically every country in the region.
Okay, let's talk about Palestine.
Okay.
What are you talking about? I know Palestine. I'm not an expert in every.
Palestinians don't fight each
Well,
other. Palestinians don't fight each other.
Palestinian. What are you talking about?
They fight each other, do they not?
Who's fighting? Who's fighting? Which Palestinians are fighting each other? Right now, Palestinians have been on the receiving end of a horrifically cruel genocide, the kinds of which words can't even describe. So Israelis are killing Palestinians. They've been doing this for 100 years now, the best part of 100 years. What are you talking about? Arabs killing Arabs? What's the point here?
The point here is that it's not, the violence is not solely because Zionists exist in the land.
It is in Palestine.
No,
in Palestine, it is.
What is not being disputed among scholars is you cannot have a permanent peace. You cannot. This is not allowed in Islam.
The kuffar from Dar al-Harb, there can never be a permanent treaty with the kuffar because it cancels out jihad, and because of the verse فَلَا تَهِنُوا وَتَدْعُوا إِلَى السَّلْمِ وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ وَاللَّهُ مَعَكُمْ وَلَن يَتِرَكُمْ أَعْمَالَكُم. It can't be forever. When Muslims get stronger and it's a benefit for the Muslims, they inform the enemy this treaty has come to an end.
عليه وسلم said الجهاد ماض في أمتي إلى يوم القيامة. The jihad is going to continue in my ummah until the day of resurrection.
It is 100%.
It is because the Jews.
No, it's got nothing to do with Jews. It's got to do with Zionists.
Yes, it's
Zionists. It's not Jews.
No,
it's
so
Zionists.
That's where we
it's not Jews, and conflating
so
the two. Conflating the two is in and of itself anti-Semitic, and it is a cause for a great deal of anti-Semitism, because blaming all Jews for the crimes committed by the Zionists in Palestine is anti-Semitic. And that's something that we're trying to fight.
You're putting words in my mouth.
We're trying
to
fight.
You're putting words in it. That's not what I'm saying. You're putting words in my mouth.
When you conflate Jews with Zionists, that's what you're doing.
Most Zionists are Jewish people. They happen to be Jewish people.
Some of them are Christians, but yeah, the Zionists in Palestine are Jewish, yes. But not all Jews support Zionism. They never have.
Right, but the difference is
there's a difference here.
But Miko, what I'm trying to say is the enemies of the Jewish people say Zionist, but what they really mean is Jews. When Yahya Sinwar gives speeches, when Khalid Mashal gives speeches, when
they're enemies not of the Jews. They're not enemies of the Jews.
When Fadi Hamad, the former spokesperson, they give speeches, they say Jews because it is a deeply, not to say that Muslims are bad people, but Islam in and of itself.
How do you know that they say these things? How do you know they say these?
What do you mean? How do I know? It's on television. You can Google it.
Do you speak Arabic?
You can Google it. Are you telling me
that? You speak Arabic.
Oh, it's dubbed. It's fake. That's not what they're saying.
I'm not saying. I'm saying, did you hear it? Because I speak Arabic.
Oh my!
And every single leader that I've ever heard, Palestinian leaders have always said, we have no problem with the Jews, which we know this because
you're
Jews in Palestine.
I know you're not a Miko.
We have a problem with the occupation. We have a problem with Zionism.
Can you imagine Israelis spending a weekend in Beirut and Lebanese families vacationing in Tel Aviv? It sounds impossible today, but so did peace between Israel and the UAE just a few years ago. The day peace finally comes between Israel and Lebanon, the sky will truly be the limit. Imagine direct flights between Tel Aviv and Beirut, Lebanese students studying at Israeli universities, and Israeli entrepreneurs investing in Lebanon's recovery, joint gas and energy projects in the Mediterranean, Israeli technology helping rebuild Lebanon's agriculture, water, infrastructure, and healthcare, tourism flourishing on both sides of the border, thousands of new jobs, prosperity replacing rockets. But there is one organization terrified of this future. Of course, Hezbollah. Hezbollah Secretary General Naim Qasim rejected the peace framework, calling it void and illegitimate, while senior Hezbollah figures openly invoked the threat of civil war, and Lebanon cannot stand another civil war. But why? Because Hezbollah does not answer to Beirut, it answers to Tehran. We have seen this before. In 2008, Hezbollah turned its weapons against fellow Lebanese, seizing parts of Beirut to protect its armed status. And now, once again, armed supporters have taken to the streets to pressure Lebanon's democratic institutions. Lebanon, a sovereign state, the biggest obstacle to peace has never been the Lebanese people. It has been the Iranian proxy that has held Lebanon hostage for decades. I dream of the day when Lebanon joins the growing circle of peace, because when that day comes, it won't just be a victory for Israel. It will be a victory for the Lebanese people, for the Arab world, and for every person who believes that cooperation builds more than wars ever will.
And this is true, and the history shows Jewish people that resided in Palestine before the state, the older kind
because
of
we were dhimmis,
got along very well with
because
Palestinians.
we were dhimmis, because we were second class and they can control us.
No, they weren't.
Once we have rule, of course, once the Jews have rule over the land, the entire narrative changes.
Of course
now
it did.
No, it
because they
changed
used horrific
of
violence
religion,
to control the land.
because it threatens them religiously, because
No.
it has to do with prophecy,
nothing to do with
with the
religion.
coming days. You think it's silly because
you're
you're
absolutely wrong
secular,
about
Miko.
that.
Miko,
You're
you're
absolutely wrong about
secular.
When you're dealing with Iran,
currently. They don't care if they get blown up.
Not at all. They do not care one bit. And this is the thing that honestly sent a chill down my spine. If you start studying Islamic eschatology, I don't recommend you spending any time on this, by the way.
The Mahdi is unbelievable.
Okay.
That's where you're going.
That's where I'm going. Okay.
Yeah.
So in Islamic eschatology, the Mahdi will emerge as a charismatic messianic world leader during global chaos. He will take control of the world and destroy everyone who resists him. He will invade many nations. He will rule and reign for 7 years. He will broker a 7-year peace treaty with the Jews. He will conquer Israel and massacre the Jews. He will establish an Islamic one-world government headquartered in Jerusalem. He will establish Islam as the only acceptable religion. He will come, bro, this is insane. He will come on a white horse with supernatural power, doing signs and wonders. He will be assisted by a powerful prophet. So we know, you and me know, the rider on the white horse in Revelation 6 is the Antichrist. They use that verse to describe their end times messianic Mahdi. Honestly, man,
They also believe Jesus is going to come back too.
the prophet that they believe will assist the Mahdi, they believe that's Isa, the Islamic view of Jesus. It's what the New Testament calls another Christ, a false Christ. I'll do one more. If you view Ezekiel 38 as an eschatological prophecy, I do. It says that all these nations are going to unite against Israel and come to attack Israel, that will be the moment that Christ, the true Jesus, returns, and like you said, he just lays waste to the enemies of God. The modern day geographic correspondence to all of those nations are as follows. Gog and Magog, that could be part of Russia or Central Asia. Meshul and Tubal, that's in Turkey. Persia, that's Iran. Cush is Sudan. Put is modern day Libya or broader northern Africa. Gomer is Turkey. Beth Togarmah, that's also Turkey. With the exception of parts of Russia, every single one of those nations today is a dominantly Islamic nation. I don't know how to read this stuff and not go, hey man, Islam might be the strong delusion that ushers in these end times things.
Everything you've just said is absolutely accurate. The other thing is, there's two major groups of Muslim, the Shiites and the Sunnis. The Shiites, their version of the Mahdi is there has to be chaos and war to usher in the Mahdi. When you're dealing with Iran currently, you're going to find out if this regime stays in power. They don't care if they get blown up.
Not at all. They do not care one bit.
So the leaders of Iran don't. They want to do whatever it takes to get the Mahdi to come.
That's it. Honestly, the ones that have been in power want global war to trigger Islamic eschatological events.
Yes.
Yeah, you keep going.
I do believe that this one world religion that will be in existence in the tribulation will have a very strong Muslim influence to it.
Okay.
Huh?
I'm wrong about that. Okay,
You
so
are
tell me
wrong.
how I'm wrong. Tell me how I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
Tell me how I'm wrong.
I'm sorry?
Tell me how I'm wrong.
You're wrong because this has got nothing to do with religion. And every single name that you just mentioned and what they said, all of them said, and this is going
Stab
back
Jews,
and forth.
kill Jews. I mean, the guys
No,
have guns.
they said we
have
have
guns in their
no
hands. I don't know what you think they're talking about.
We have no issue with the Jews. The issue is with Zionism and the occupation. And the
How can we claim Palestine is ours when it is Jewish land? In the Quran, it's Jewish land. According to history, it's Jewish land. It's very hard to sell this argument that Palestine is ours. It's not ours. How did it become ours? Israel has every right to have a country on Jewish land. It's their land. It's their land. And what do we have now from Palestine? Show me one good thing from Palestine. All what they've given us, Muslim Brotherhood and Hizb ut-Tahrir and Hamas, and their rulers are robbing them. These are the facts.
fact that they stole the land and they're killing Palestinians. And that is why we have
That is what
Palestinian resistance. That is
No,
why
Miko,
we have
you're just
organizations
unfortunately,
that resist.
unfortunately, you're naive about it. And
I'm not
and it's-
naive about it.
You are.
I
And
have,
this is the
no,
same.
I'm not naive
This is the
about it.
same
I've been-
naivete. There's the same naivete that the liberal Israelis on the Gaza envelope believed until they were slaughtered because they believed that it wasn't about.
whoa. Who was slaughtered? By whom?
Oh, here we
Who
go.
was slaughtered by
Hold on.
whom?
Before we get to that, no, because I already know this argument you're going to get to. I heard on other debates, but we're
Okay,
going to
so
get to
you
it.
heard, so you know what I
No,
say,
I'm open
so.
to covering it. We can cover it. Hold on. My point here is that when people love to say, "Oh, well, the Jews had total peace in that during the Ottoman Empire and in previous empires," that was because we didn't have any power. The Muslims were not threatened by us because we did not have power. The moment that we have rule over it, it threatens them politically and it threatens them especially religiously. We were dhimmis, the Mizrahi Jews were dhimmis prior to 1948 Even then, we were slaughtered. That's another good question for you. Is long before 1948, the Mizrahi Jews were constantly persecuted, and they had
Where?
to ride donkeys sideways. They had to build synagogues lower than churches. They had to wear specific clothing.
Okay,
Certain
what's
times
your
they
point?
couldn't walk on the.
What's your
The
point?
point is, why did that exist? Why did that exist?
It didn't, but what's your point?
It didn't exist. You're
No.
telling me that wasn't a thing.
Yeah, the
Okay, then
Jews from Arab countries, the Arab Jews. I don't know if you read Avi Shlaim. I don't know if you know who Avi Shlaim is. He's a very
yeah,
important historian.
the Iraqi Jew. I know who he is.
Yeah, so he wrote about the experience of the Iraqi Jews and what the Zionists did to get them to leave the country that they loved,
I'm aware of
and,
that.
and the country in which they felt safe and proud to be Jews and Iraqis. And the same goes for all the other Arab countries. But
No, but that was
I
not
don't
the
know
entire
why.
history. That was not.
I don't
You're
know.
taking a moment. You're taking one moment talking about how there was peace, and you're negating 1400 years of Islamic oppression. It's not just the Muslims. The Christians were even worse to us than the Muslims were.
I don't know
We
where you
actually,
get your sources, Rafi, but you need to educate yourself before you say these things. You sound
Miko,
like a fool.
Miko, this is a
You
well-known
sound like a
fact.
fool.
I sent you a link
Don't send me your
giving
links, okay?
specific
I know
dates.
exactly what your sources are.
Okay,
Look,
you're just
you're not the
denying.
first Zionist I spoke to, okay? I've been doing this for a
Miko,
long time.
Miko, you have cognitive dissonance, and the reality is you automatically came into this debate thinking that I'm a little kid that doesn't know anything, and you're
You
this
are.
smart, brilliant guy. No, but I'm not. But I know
You
quite a
are.
bit. No,
You
I know
are. That's
quite a bit.
otherwise you wouldn't be as look. There's only two excuses for Zionism: ignorance or being evil. I choose to believe that you're not evil, but you're ignorant.
I very much
Otherwise,
think
how could you
I,
possibly support
I
Zionism?
don't think you're ignorant. I think you don't understand who you are. You have a real Stockholm syndrome.
Well, you want to give me some therapy now?
No, but you really do. You don't know who you are. You really
All
have
right.
no
Well,
idea.
the fact I don't know. We're on two sides.
Because it's not about Zionism. It's understanding that the Jewish people and the land of Israel are synonymous. No, forget because get Zionism out of it for a second. The Jewish people are back in the land of Israel. The Quran, the people you support are predominantly believing Muslims. They believe the Quran literally talks about the Jews, the land of Israel being promised to the Jewish people. You think it's nonsense. You think it's horseshit. But the people that you love so much, all the flags behind you, those people believe it too. It's in their book. So what you're doing is you put your shoe, the shoe that fits your foot, you want to put it on other people and say, well, it's going to fit their feet too.
Okay, whatever. I don't know what you're talking about, but
the UN, when will you end the ritual of condemning Israel? Is it not time instead to learn from Israel how to defeat terror, defend free societies, and pursue peace? I heard the term colonizers, but who are the real colonizers? A Jewish kingdom ruled in Judea for 1,000 years. We, the Arabs, took this land. Who Arabized Egyptians, Phoenicians, Persians, and Amazics? It was us, the Arabs. So why does the Council enshrine a lie by keeping a permanent agenda item on Palestine while ignoring the indigenous heart of Israel returning home? Let us be clear, who is actually defending our sovereignty? Today, Israel is fighter for peaceful nations, freeing Gaza from Hamas and saving Iranians from the Islamic Republic. What Israel is doing to the IRGC is a gift to humanity. There are 57 Islamic countries and only one Jewish state, Israel. Despite the ongoing hateful desire to eliminate it, Israel has not only survived, it has thrived. I don't believe in miracles, but this is one.
I reject the notion that somehow have anything to do with religion.
I
already told you that. And you keep bringing religion.
That is the basis of this entire fight.
We keep talking about Jews, and I think it's important to distinguish between Jews that bought into Zionism and Jewish people that did not buy into Zionism.
Let's agree to disagree.
That's extremely important if you want to understand, and to talk about Jews and what it means to be Jewish and so forth. The Jews that bought into Zionism is a very particular group, and that's separate from Jews in general. And that rift, by the way, is growing and has grown tremendously since the slaughter in Gaza, in the Gaza concentration camp. So it's important. It's an important distinction. And if you don't agree with it, that's neither here nor there.
Can I ask you what should have Israel done? Don't say like, oh well, if Israel didn't have the occupation, it wouldn't have led to October. Okay, I know you're going to say that.
Okay, well,
being
that's
that
why
we're
you're
already
asking.
in the predict. No, because
so you're asking. That's
no. Because I have an answer to that too, but I know that's going to be your answer. What I'm saying is, if Gaza, the Gazans are already in the position they're in. Israel pulled out. They're in the position they're in. Not a great one, but Hamas also was lobbing rockets for years. They decide to commit October 7th. Do you think that was a wise choice? Meaning, understanding the predicament where you're invading a nuclear power and you're expecting there to be no consequence, especially after you've shot thousands of missiles over the course of many years. What should Israel, after they've done that, what should have Israel done? Meaning, if you were the prime minister, don't say, well, I wouldn't be because it wouldn't be let's say theoretically Miko Peled was. I know you hate the thought of that, but if you were the prime minister, what would have been your response after the fact, after they invaded?
What would be your response if you were in Gaza?
But that wasn't the question. I asked you a question.
I know, but I'm asking you. I'm answering with a question.
But don't flip the question with a question.
No, because it's important. It's important.
If
you were living in Gaza,
I want an answer. I can answer your. I'll answer your question. I'll answer your question, but don't avoid the.
No, because the reality you're describing is so outrageously impossible that there's no way to respond to it.
It is not outrageous.
It is an outrageous response trying to justify the slaughter of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians.
Not about justification.
Because of October 7th.
And you're justifying Hamas's slaughter. And you're justifying Hamas's slaughter.
What did you say? What would you do? What would you do if you're a young Palestinian in Gaza living in a concentration camp where a glass of clean water is a luxury, where your child has no access to antibiotic?
I wouldn't attack a sovereign nation. I would maybe also the Egyptians. I would not attack a sovereign nation.
Really, you would not attack the country that has placed you in a concentration camp for all of these years. You would not attack the country that stole your land, destroyed your homes, is destroying your country, is torturing your children, allowing your children to die of diseases because they don't give them access to medical care. And you would sit around and you would say, I will not attack a sovereign nation. What are you talking about?
It's a dumb decision. Well, they've tried it. They've been trying it since 48.
Well, that's what they've got. And it's
it hasn't been working out too well for them. It hasn't been working out too well for them.
Not for me or you. Well, that's arguable. That's arguable.
Secondly, why in the world?
Not for me or you to judge what Palestinians living in Gaza
I can judge whatever I can judge whatever I can
or not to do.
Okay, judges. First of all, when a criminal commits a crime, a judge judges. The jury judges. They don't have to be criminals or commit the act to make a judgment. So yes, I can make a judgment, even if I'm not. I don't have to be a Gazan to make a judgment. Yes, I can.
Yes, you do. Absolutely,
no, I do not. No, I do not.
Absolutely, you do.
Ridiculous.
You absolutely do. You cannot talk, and neither can I talk.
It's ridiculous
about what the oppressed should or shouldn't do, how they should or shouldn't resist, when you are not only not an oppressed, but you're part of the system of oppression.
So by that logic,
genocide.
By that, it's okay. A genocide where the population grew. It's a great genocide.
Oh yeah.
The population grew.
Yeah.
Secondly, the Mizrahi Jews and Ashkenazi Jews, after thousands of years of persecution, we shouldn't judge them either. I mean, by that logic, they should have every right to do whatever they want. If you're going to say the Palestinians shouldn't be judged for things like October 7th, who are we to have the gall to judge them?
That's right.
But yet the Jews who have gone through arguably, factually, much more persecution, if you were to weigh it case by case.
I don't know where you're going with this, but I don't.
My point is if you want to make a moral argument,
I don't accept your premise that any of this is comparable.
Miko, if you want to say we can't judge Gazans, then by that logic, you can't judge Jews.
I didn't judge Jews. I'm not judging Jews. I never judge Jews. I'm judging Zionists.
Okay.
Who are a fraction of Jews.
Okay.
I'm judging Zionists who are a fraction of Jews. And the Iraqi Jews were not Zionists, and the Yemeni Jews were Zionists, and the North African Jews were not Zionists, and the Levant Jews were not Zionists. The Zionists came from Europe. That's why they look like me. Then later on.
And you were also killed. You were also killed, even though you look like you. Meaning
I was not killed.
Your ancestor. I know you're alive, but your ancestors were killed, despite
some
the
were
fact
killed, some were not. But the point is that saying that equates this or this justifies that. I'm not judging Jews for what they did. I'm not judging the Jews for what they did when they were in camps. I'm not judging Jews for what they did.
Of course,
I am judging the Zionists because their campaigns to destroy Palestinians, to kick out Palestinians and take their land goes back long before the Holocaust. And it has very little to do with the reality of Jews in other countries. It was a settler colonial campaign to destroy Palestine and steal it from the Palestinian people by a small group of radical Jews that sadly was able to grow to very big proportions. But I'm not judging the Jews for what they did or didn't do. I never did that. That's completely irrelevant. I am saying that it's not I certainly am not in a position, I don't think anybody is, to tell Palestinians how to resist this horrific reality that they have to live under, this constant terror, this constant killing, the constant buzzing of drones and planes and seeing their loved ones tortured and abused horrifically in prisons and on and on and on and on and on.
Right.
They have a right to resist under every law under the sun.
Okay, listen.
And that's what they're doing.
Okay, so if you think what they did is justified, so be it. Listen, I understand. I can understand why the Palestinians do what they do. It doesn't mean I agree with it. I understand why they didn't agree to the partition plan. I get that. I understand why they didn't.
Well,
but
nobody
they
asked
also
them
had
to begin with. Nobody consulted with them.
Huh?
Nobody consulted. Nobody consulted with them.
It wasn't up, but it wasn't up to them. It was up to the British. The British ruled the land. It wasn't up to them. The British ruled it.
That was a big success. Yeah.
Okay, but I'm saying the reality is they had the agency. They're not children. I mean, there are some, of course, that are children, but the point is the Palestinian people as a people are capable of having agency and making choices. You can say you've experienced all the suffering in the world, but your actions have consequences the same way the Jewish actions, all actions by all people have consequences. So you can do the action and you can say that, well, I did the action because A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. That doesn't remove the fact that there are still going to be consequences. That's the point that I'm not sure why that doesn't compute. I mean, it's.
I don't know why you think it doesn't compute. What's your point? You think
point is
Palestinians
that
didn't know? You think Palestinians didn't know that they were going to be hit this hard? They're not. They're
but
not
then
stupid.
don't. Okay, but then don't cry about it when you get your ass kicked.
That's what you're calling this genocide, the murder of tens of thousands of children, the murder of tens of thousands of human beings, the destruction of hospitals and schools. You're calling that got your ass kicked? Are you out of your mind? What are you talking about?
You can
This
yell.
is a genocide. People are dying. People are dying in the streets. Children are dying from small infections because there's no estimate. You're calling this got their ass kicked?
Yelling.
This is not got their ass kicked.
Okay,
what are you out of your mind? It's like saying, well, the Jews deserve the Holocaust. That's exactly what you're saying now. Is the Jews deserve the Holocaust? That's exactly what you're saying now.
Did the Jews attack the Germany? Did the Jews
This is
invade
exactly
Germany?
what you're saying now. I'm sure if you
did
sat
the
with a
Jews
Nazi, a Nazi would find good excuses for what they did.
Okay,
That's not the point.
The Jews, so
and
the
you,
Jews
as a
invaded
Zionist
Germany?
now, are playing that role. That you are a Zionist now playing that role, saying that the victims have agency and therefore this genocide, this mass massacre, this mass murder of people.
This wasn't happening. There was no war.
It wasn't happening.
No,
you know when the massacres. You
not
know when
to
the
this
Israelis
extent.
Do you know when the Israelis start massacring in the Gaza Strip? As soon as they created the Gaza Strip in the 1950s, it began. They would go in with these special units and commit horrific massacres, on and on and on and on and on, all the way until, to some point now, we have these horrific weapons of mass destruction, and look what they've done. Where they're capable of a complete genocide, of taking 2 million people, an area where 2 million people lived, and completely destroying
it. It's a war. It's not a genocide.
No, it's not a war. It's a genocide. Don't justify it by saying war. War. It's not a war. War means there's two armies. It doesn't mean you've got a bunch of guys with with flip-flops and a machine gun against a military. Against a military.
Says who?
Monster.
Just because says who? I don't know where you get that definition from. Because one military is stronger than the other, it's not a war anymore.
No, it's not a war when one side is the oppressor and has been murdering and committing horrific acts of genocide, and the other side is trying to defend itself, and a side that never had a military force. Palestinians never had a military force. They never had airplanes, they never had helicopters, they never had an artillery, they never had anything.
Okay, but
All they did have is
Egypt.
from time to time they've had guerrilla warfare in order to try to
because
make a point.
because Israel is a stronger military, automatically it's a genocide. That's Miko's definition of genocide.
No, the facts are that there's a genocide going on. And when you look at a history of 100 years, if you can tell me that the intent was not to destroy the Palestinian people, then I don't know what you're looking at.
This is
but it
this
is
is a pretty
obvious
shitty.
from
It's a pretty
what the Zionists said and did for the last 100 years was genocidal. Genocidal. The definition of Zionism is racism and genocide. And that's exactly what they did. And that's exactly what they said. They were never shy about it. You know, after the massacres during 1948, they would say, oh my God, this is terrible. Oh, but look, all these other Arabs fled, so it's good. So it will turn out to be okay. And that's how they justify massacres all the way till today. People like you look at Gaza and they say, well, they got their ass kicked. How can you say that? It's exactly like Nazis saying the Jews deserve the Holocaust. And now you are in that role. And you're not even paying attention. You're
again,
in that role.
the Jews did not attack the Germans.
That's not the point. The point is the Nazis had their own justifications. And neither did the Palestinians.
Miko, yelling doesn't make your point more valid. I know you think it does. I know
Rafi,
people listening.
Palestinians did not attack Israelis. Israelis have been for 100 years destroying Palestine and killing Palestinians. Palestinians did not attack Israelis. From time to time, we've seen acts of resistance, of armed resistance. But that is not called the attack. That is not what is going on here. You're taking one slice of history.
You want to
you're
say
saying, well,
he
they
hit
attacked
me.
us, so they deserve it.
Miko, that's what both sides say. You want to play the tit for tat, chicken egg, who hurt who first? The reality is this isn't just a war against Palestinians. It's
not a war. It's a genocide.
Oh, it's not a genocide.
It's a genocide. It's a genocide.
I disagree.
No, there's nothing to disagree about here. It's not an opinion. You look at the definition of the crime of genocide, compare it to the last 100 years in Palestine, and particularly the last 3 years, and it is an absolute fit.
Okay.
And this was and by the way, the definition of the crime of genocide was made by a Jewish jurist, Raphael Lemkin. So you need to look into that. If you look at the crime of genocide, the crime of ethnic cleansing, the crime of apartheid, compared to what's happening in Palestine, it's a perfect fit.
Gotcha. Okay. So the population increased throughout since 1948. It was at a few 100,000. Now there are more of them than there are of us. So it's a pretty really bad attempt at genocide. If we're trying to, we really suck at it. If that's the case. There were more Gazans. More Gazans were born since October 7th than have died. So it's pretty bad genocide we're trying to do. The buildings were mostly destroyed. That all.
You really think this is funny?
It's not funny. You're just not making.
This is funny.
You're just saying people
really
said it's a genocide.
What is happening in Gaza?
Miko,
You're making jokes about it.
I'm actually I'm not making jokes.
You're making jokes about genocide.
Okay, you don't have a good argument, so now you're just attacking me. You don't have a good argument.
I don't have a good argument. Fine.
You don't have a
you're
good
making
argument.
jokes about genocide. Is what you're doing.
Someone decided it's a genocide, so it's a genocide. But when I explain when I explain
first of all, every reputable organization, international organization, has defined it as genocide. So that's one thing. And the other thing, anybody with eyes in their head and can read the crime of genocide can see that it's genocide. It's not a question of opinion here. Every single reputable organization has said it's genocide, including Israeli organizations.
Yeah, there's a bunch of Israeli organizations that say all kind of dumb things. But
Excuse me? You're brushing off organizations like B'Tselem and Human Rights Watch and Amnesty and just saying they're dumb.
There was something.
I'm the one that doesn't have an argument.
I believe there was something there was part of the debate that I listened to where you brushed off something about Amnesty, but I'll have to look for it. I believe it was.
The point is, you don't want to call it genocide. That's fine. I mean, the Nazis also denied many Nazis.
No,
well,
the Nazis killed 2/3 of the Jewish. The Nazis
doesn't mean that they were right. There are people who deny the Holocaust, and you're denying there's a genocide. I mean, it's a complete.
I'm not denying there's suffer. I'm not denying there. See, you're
denying,
equating. You think that I'm saying there's no suffering. I acknowledge that there's suffering.
You're saying there's no genocide, and it's just like people who are saying there was no Holocaust. It's the same thing.
It's just not. It's not the same. It's not a moral equivalence. I understand how you're trying to make it so, but it's not.
Anyway, what's
What I want to get to is solutions. We're going to agree to disagree. Now, you believe in one secular state. What I want to know is, for someone that seems to be a human rights advocate, you want a secular state, but there's a large portion of Palestinians who believe in killing gays. They don't believe in women's rights. Not all of them. Obviously, they are PA members. People in Ramallah are more secular, but there's a large number of them that don't believe in democratic values. So, what does a one state look like for both peoples in your
I
eyes?
don't know what that preface had to do with anything about gays. I mean, Israel kills everybody, gays and non-gays and whatever the case may be.
Israel kills gays.
Including Jewish gays.
Okay.
So including Israeli
Israel
gays.
kills gays now. It has the biggest probably the only pride parade in Tel Aviv, but it kills gays.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyway, that's besides the point. What I want or don't want is really not the issue. The Zionist state, the apartheid state, created a de facto one state on all of Palestine. Granted, it's an apartheid state. Now, and here at Palestine House of Freedom, where we're sitting right now in Washington, our mission is to bring about a free Palestine from the river to the sea, and to demonstrate how that is the only solution that serves the well-being of everyone who lives between the river and the sea. Only a post-apartheid, liberated Palestine with the right of return has the possibility of allowing Israelis and Palestinians to coexist. And so to that end, I believe that is the solution. And I think it's inevitable. I mean, the state of Israel is collapsing anyway. The Palestinian existence is now, the world has woke up finally after this genocide. Public opinion is changing. Politics are changing, even here in America. And so it's only a question of time. And the way we see it is that it would be better to plan rather than to allow it to collapse and have a vacuum, which is never good, is to have a plan and to gradually, kind of like they did in South Africa, but maybe preempt it even more and allow the transition from apartheid to a real democracy, and then to allow the return of the refugees. There's no other solution that will serve everyone who lives in historic Palestine between the river and the sea.
Okay.
So that's why we call for that, and that's what we advocate.
So who's going to rule? Is it going to be ruled by
democracy?
Okay.
Democracy, elections.
Okay. Understood. So it's going to be ruled by whoever gets elected. I understand what democracy is. I get it.
Okay.
But I'm saying in the context of the history of 80 years where people have been slaughtering each other on both sides, and there's deep-seated hatred.
Israelis have been slaughtering.
No.
Not on both sides.
Literally, your niece was killed in a suicide bombing.
Yes, she was. But that's nothing compared to
my condolences. I'm sorry about that.
What preceded that. But never mind. Okay.
It's still okay. We're not gonna delve into that. It's crazy that you don't still fault the person who did it. You make it as if he's an innocent person. But okay. It's hard for me to put my head.
The cause for the death of my niece was the state of Israel. And if you don't see that, then you just don't. Then you're not connecting the lines. You're not connecting the dots.
So basically,
the only reason
an abuser can abuse because he was abused. That's pretty much what
this
you're
is
saying.
not an abuser abusing.
Okay.
This is not an abuser abusing. No, this is not the same thing.
So what is it? Go on.
This is not the analogy.
So what is it? So tell me. So what is it then?
This is not the abuser abusing. It's an oppressed people resisting by the only means that they have available.
So blowing yourself up to kill.
If you don't see that those 3 young men that killed themselves, killed my niece and a few others, if you don't see the connection between the reality that Israel created for those 3 young men to do something like that, then again, you're not connecting the lines.
Okay.
It's
You're
very
justifying suicide bombing. It's nuts.
I'm not justifying anything. I'm just saying this is the reality. I'm not justifying it all. In fact, Netanyahu was prime minister at the time. That was his first term. And he should go to jail. I'm not justifying. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not forgiving. The people responsible are the Israeli government, and they should go to jail. Absolutely.
Gotcha.
It's not about justifying. It's about pointing to the real cause of the violence.
Okay.
And that is the cause. The reason my niece was killed is because Benjamin Netanyahu and the prime ministers before him.
No,
That's
it's
what
because
huge
of
means.
Islam. It's because of Islamic fundamentalism. That's what it really is. But
No,
second of all,
no, it's
if a
got nothing to do with
man
Islamic
beat
fundamentalism.
his wife and then goes to court and then says, "It's not my fault. My father used to beat
No,
me.
no, no,
My
no, no, no.
father
This is
used to
not the
beat me."
analogy.
Okay,
Rafi,
it's a great
this is,
analogy.
come on, this is nonsense. This is not the analogy.
Why is it
This is
not the
not the
analogy?
abuser being abused.
Why
This
not?
is not the abuser being
Why
abused. That's not the
why not?
case.
Why is it not the case?
Because it's not the case.
Tell me
That
why
is
it's
not
not
the
the case.
case.
Tell me why it's
Because
not the case.
resistance of an oppressed nation is not an abuser being abused. It's like,
It
you know, people
literally
say,
is. It
let me tell you
literally
something.
is.
Let me tell you
Yes, it
something. Well,
is.
a
That's
lot of people
exactly what it
say,
is. It's
listen to
exactly
this.
what it
No,
is.
nope. A lot of people say, a lot of people claim, and I argue very strongly against it. A lot of people say, you know, how could Jewish people who have suffered so much now do this? Now do this to the Palestinians, doing exactly what was done to them, in some cases worse. That is not true. That is not a true representation of reality, because the vast majority of Jewish people who were oppressed, who survived the Nazis, did not go to Palestine, did not become Zionists.
If they
That's the
could,
difference.
because they
That's
would.
the difference.
That's
So you
because they
can't blame
wanted.
Israelis.
That was
You
for
can't
economic
say
purposes.
that because Israelis are murdering Palestinians, it's them, the abused, that were abused by the Nazis, now abusing. No, that's not the case. I reject that in this case as well, although the argument here to a lot of people seems to make sense, because it's not the same people. They happen to be Jewish, but they're not the same people. And to say that somehow acts of resistance are the abuser abusing is also a complete
You
misrepresentation of the reality.
you're pretty much just the Jewish Mossab Hassan Yusuf. You acknowledge that,
No,
right?
I'm
You're
not.
effective.
No,
You
no, 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 no,
you're
no. No, 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 no. He justifies genocide. I reject it. He justifies violence. He's a racist, and I reject that. I am not a racist. I stand up against racism. I did a debate with him at Oxford. You know, he is a racist, self-hating racist of the worst
you're
kind.
also self-hating, though.
No, 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 no. You're not going to find me blaming Jews and saying bad things about
It's a
Jews.
way for
No,
you
no,
to
no, no,
move
no.
away from it.
Somebody,
Okay.
let me give you an example. It's the same thing.
It's like
Imagine,
Mossab saying, "I don't blame Hamas." Listen, the
no,
Jewish
no, no,
people
no,
in
no, no, no,
Israel
no,
are
no, no.
synonymous. Let's stop with the
No, no, no,
nonsense.
no, 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 no. You're not gonna go that. I'm not gonna let you go down that path.
All right.
That's
Okay.
complete nonsense. That's
Okay.
complete nonsense. It's like saying somebody, imagine there's imagine this. I didn't make this up. This is another Israeli friend of mine, okay? Saying, imagine there's a gang rape, and then you've got one guy yelling at everybody to stop, and another guy yelling at everybody to continue. It's not the same thing. And this is the difference between me and Mossab. I'm seeing the gang rape and I'm yelling at him to stop. He's seeing the gang rape and he says continue. That's the difference.
You're not really.
He's seeing the genocide and
No.
he says of his own people, and he says it's okay. I'm seeing the genocide against the Palestinian people, or any people for that matter.
He doesn't
and
say
I'm
it's
saying,
okay.
no, this has got to stop. And yes, my family roots have a lot to do.
He's actually a God. The funny thing is you want to talk about judging. He's actually a Gazan. You're not a God. He's actually a Gazan.
I know he is.
So he has
And
a
he's
little
going
bit more
against his own
knowledge.
people and saying continue the genocide.
Well, I think he also understands as a now Christian that the Jewish people have deep ties to this land, especially again when the enemies of the Zionists, like you like to say, are primarily religious people. See,
That's
the
not
thing
true.
is, if
That's not
yes,
true.
yeah, of course it is.
It's not true. Just because you keep saying it, it's not true. Enemies of Zionists
Gazans,
are anyone with a conscience. Anyone who rejects racism and violence is an enemy of Zionism. Anyone who rejects white supremacy of any form
it's ridiculous.
is an enemy of the Zionists.
Ridiculous.
So no,
Ridiculous.
it's not ridiculous.
Okay.
It's not ridiculous. Zionism is a form of supremacy, mostly white supremacy that came from Europe. So anybody who rejects racism, violence, anti-Semitism is an enemy of the Zionists.
Okay.
Because Zionism, like anti-Semitism, like white supremacy, like all forms of racism and violence, are all on the same page, are all on the same.
So let
on
me
the
ask
same
you,
line.
which country has the Druze with the best upward mobility? The Druze that live the best
Upward
economically.
mobility? Have you upward mobility? Are you? Do you know what they go through when they go back home to their villages? Are you kidding? First of all, they get spat on, the ones that serve by the ones, because now there's a very strong anti-military service movement among the Druze community, a very large, and the percentage of those who refuse to serve is grown beyond 50%. But that's besides the point. When these guys return, do you think they get any kind of upward mobility outside of the military? And even then they have a ceiling because they're basically Arabs. That's nonsense.
I keep telling you that Israel is an apartheid. But if Israel is an apartheid, then please explain to me this. How come in Israel there's a young Druze boy from the age of 14 who became one of the most famous influencers in the country, walking freely in Jewish streets, Jewish cities, advocating for Druze, for Muslims, for Arabs, for Christians? Show me one Muslim country that would let that happen. This is Marwan Jabir and I'm Mansour Ashkar, and we're both Druze from Israel. I want to tell you one thing. Israel is the best country in the Middle East for minorities. He can walk, you have Jewish friends?
Yeah, of course. Also, Israel is giving to the Arab all the rights.
All the rights. We have every possible single right, just like our Jewish brothers, just like our Christian brothers and our Muslim brothers. And that is something that they're not telling you in the West, and it's important. So please help share this video with all the haters that keep spreading lies about the only decent democracy in the Middle East.
Only peace.
Yeah, Habibi.
Habibi.
כולנו עם אחד, עם ישראל חי, אריות ולוויון, כולכם פה בחיי, אך פתאום מתאחדים אחרי הריבים והוויכוחים, מול האויב האמיתי, שלא ציפה לראות אחים. יד ביד הולכים, שרים ולא מפחדים, לא לשכוח את הכוח שקיבלנו מאלוהים, ביחד נזריע בהם פחד, נצעק להם ביי, נשאר מאוחדים לנצח, עם ישראל חי.
معروف فوق المجد بالصفوف يوم الوغى المعروف شلنا العدو ما شالنا
يا مشايخ التوقات يا نجوم هالسهرات انتو لنا مرايات فيكن منقشع حالنا يا مشايخ
I know the Jewish community very well, and I know those who reject the draft, and I know those who don't.
I'm sure there are.
I know those who don't. I know those who don't, and what they face, and what their kids are going to think about them when they grow up. They're going to spit. They're going to spit.
I have a Druze Israeli. Any Druze Israeli I know says the opposite of what you're talking
about. Yeah, well, then maybe they're not telling you the truth.
Okay. That would be a good debate for me to have with if you're interested in that. I have a Druze Israeli. He makes
I have a
content.
Druze. First of all, Druze cannot be Israelis. They're Palestinians. They happen to be Druze, but they're Palestinians. So they're Palestinian citizens of Israel who happen to be Druze, like others happen to be Christian or Muslim. But there are I know many Druze activists.
They can be Israelis because they have Israeli citizenship and Israel's a state. So yes, they are Israeli.
Yeah, well.
Palestinian is not an ethnic. Palestinian is not an ethnic identity.
To most non-Israeli Jews, if you call them Israeli, that's an insult. If you say Israeli Arab, that's an insult.
The Druze seem to be pretty happy with being Israeli.
Yeah,
at least
well.
And which
and blacks in America really were happy during slavery and during Jim Crow. It's the exact same thing. They were very
comparing
happy.
Druze to
black
people during
black
slavery.
South Africans were very happy when they were put in their place in South Africa. It's the exact same claim, don't you see?
Okay, let's not talk about black people in South Africa because you're going to move the goalpost to a totally separate thing. Now we're going to start talking about slavery for 20 minutes. Because then I could say black people enslaved more black people pretty much than anyone else did.
Of course.
Okay, so you want to go talk about that, like the Arabs also.
What else have you got? We should wrap it up. It's been.
We should. Anyway, listen, Miko, regardless, I appreciate you coming on. Obviously, we agree to disagree on most things. I think for the most part, it was respectful, would you say?
Sure.
It was heated, but there were really no ad hominems.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You did a good job, and I'm glad you said that you were
wrong.
I'm so proud of you,
Dad. Thank you, Dad. You're so sweet.
I'm glad you said you were wrong about the derogatory.
I still think they're assholes. I don't like. This is my feeling. Like I know you. I don't They're not my friends. They're your
That's
friends.
not the point. The point is they're not your friends. They don't need to be, but you don't use that kind
Miko,
of language. And you said
have
you were
you
wrong. I mean, that's
never-
fine. We
have
don't need
you-
to talk about
no,
it.
I get
You
it, but
said
I'm
you were
saying
wrong. I
I'm
get it.
sure you've called people all kinds of things in your life. Okay,
No, I
I'm
don't.
sure you're never called anyone an idiot in your life. I'm sure you've called quite a few
You
people.
didn't say idiot. You used racial slurs.
I didn't use racial slurs.
Really?
Oh,
Calling
Okay.
Congresswoman Ilhan Omar a Somali pirate? Come on.
Okay.
Come on. I'm surprised you haven't heard from your audience, people calling you out on that. And using the word retarded to describe somebody you disagree with? Morally retarded? Who uses
Oh, I'm
that
not.
term anymore?
I'm not comparing him to a person on the
That's not the
spectrum.
point. That's not the point. There's a certain language that's acceptable and it isn't.
Okay, I don't listen. With all due respect, I don't need you to tell me how to say that.
Okay.
Okay, ladies and gents. First of all, thank you again for having me on. For coming on the show. I appreciate it. I do. Ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe, like, share, leave your comments, and I hope you tune into the next one. Take care.